Coral reefs are actually really important, not just from the perspective of biodiversity. They are the most biodiverse marine ecosystems. But aside from this, coral reefs have actually really important functioning for society. My name is Verena Schöpf, and I'm interested in finding out how corals can cope with climate change stressors. So particularly how they can cope with oceans that are warming at a very rapid rate.
This year, the ocean temperatures have just been at an absolute record level. They've never seen temperatures this high, and this has facilitated the devastating coral bleaching event that we have seen this year.
Coral bleaching happens when corals are exposed to stressful conditions, but typically these days coral bleaching happens when the water temperatures get too hot for too long. So for example, if the water is about 1 degree or 2 degrees warmer than the normal summer temperatures, that means that the coral becomes stressed. And the coral actually is a symbiosis between a microscopic algae inside their tissue and the coral itself, which is more kind of like a jellyfish or anemone. And during stressful times, this symbiosis breaks down, and that is a problem for the coral because it gets most of its energy and food from the algae. So suddenly when a coral is bleaching, it's actually starving, and that is obviously only a state that they can sustain for so long.
We don't really have any record of bleaching or mass bleaching in WA before the 1998 global mass bleaching event, and then we didn't have any bleaching for quite a few years. And then in 2010 and 2011 we had mass bleaching extending from Ningaloo Reef all the way down to Perth region, and so this put the spotlight on bleaching in Western Australia for the first time.
Record ocean temperatures this year have led to coral bleaching, and we've actually seen this at Scott Reef. In January there was no coral bleaching, the reef was still pristine, and then when we went in April, at the midst of the bleaching, the temperatures were up to 33 to 34 degrees Celsius, which is more than 2 degrees warmer than they were at the same time last year. This actually caused a large proportion, I'm talking 80–90% of the reef to actually die, which was absolutely devastating to see, having seen it transition from a healthy, beautiful, pristine reef in January to just 10 months later, a desolate graveyard.
The biggest threat to coral reefs in general is climate change, and that is obviously just as much a problem in WA as it is elsewhere in the world. Humans can actually do a lot. You can support environmental measures that, ensure good water quality, but also prevent overfishing. But then ultimately, I think the most important thing that people can do to protect reefs is really to support renewable energies. I think there is a high chance that we might lose coral reefs altogether if we really don't do anything.
Everyone knows about the Great Barrier Reef, but on the west coast we do have these absolutely pristine, beautiful reefs. And I think it's so important for people in WA to realise that these reefs do exist and they do need protecting. At the moment, it's not looking too hopeful, but there is hope if we act now and try and save the reefs.